What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of You for the Witch and the Beast. Yeah, this is episode 9, and with me, as always, I have Blues Paid.
Yeah. Um, I mean, this is the final episode of the Witch and the Demon Sword arc. Um, it kind of ended off really a lot faster than I thought it was gonna be.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, it's just basically uh Guido kissing a reluctant Helga, which allows Guido to get back her beast form, and of course with it, she's able to easily beat the unsealed demon sword with ease. Like she did not, there was no struggle or anything like that. It's just Asaf tells her not to use her right arm, otherwise it's going to end up destroying it. They just want it like completely sealed or just taken down a notch or something.
Yeah, I mean, this really just shows how OP that Yudo is in her beast form. Um, but yeah, this is just another instance where I did say before that I was kind of afraid as to how they were going to adapt this, and considering how the rest of the series has looked, or the series has looked up to this point in terms of just how the general art style and animation, and unfortunately, it's pretty consistent with everything we've seen. I was kind of hoping that maybe they would sort of, I don't know, I wasn't expecting anything great, of course, but they would maybe sort of just try to do something a little bit different. But unfortunately, it's just kind of directed the same way, and I don't know. It's not really interesting to watch. Like I mean, it's not a really necessarily like a tense fight scene or anything, because like you said, Yudo is just really OP, and it's a fairly one-sided fight for the most part, considering Guido sort of just ends up sort of wiping the floor with Ashcan. But it's just it looked a lot more. I mean, there's just a lot more detail, of course, like I mentioned before, to everything in the manga. And the fight scene just looks way more intense than it is here, where it's just directed very flat, and animation wise, there's just not a lot going on. So,
Mhm.
I mean, it's supposed to be kind of this big epic fight scene, but the way it's adapted, it's just kind of, I don't know, it's just not really not really that engaging. Um and it's, I don't know. I feel like that's the main problem I've really been having with it. As a manga reader. It's just, yeah, I don't know. I just feel like it's a problem with mostly, it could be a combination of a few things, maybe like the budget, the director, and the animation studio, and I would assume is the reason why it just ends up looking the way it does. Um,
Yeah. It just
it
made the fight feel and
it,
a lot more
it annoys me
anticlimactic
too,
than
because
it's
like
supposed to be.
it is adapted faithfully, story and character wise. It's just that it the manga, like, yeah, it does have interesting concepts. It doesn't necessarily do certain things like the most original way in certain aspects, but I feel like the art also does a really, like, does a lot of the heavy lifting. It does a good job, like, kind of carrying the series in a way. Not saying that everything else about it is bad or anything like that, but the art really does a lot of the, like I said, a lot of the heavy lifting in the manga. The problem is in anime, like, we don't really have anything like that. While it could be adapted faithfully in terms of its plot and characters, you don't really have any kind of great animation to fall back on or anything either. So it just kind of, I don't know, like, all you really have then is just the plot and characters, which, while I said isn't bad, it's um again, it does feel in some ways somewhat derivative, and it can kind of feel like it's not that great if it doesn't have, like, any kind of really good animation to fall back on, or at least interesting art or directing style, which this series just doesn't have. It's just it just kind of adapts the manga as it is, and it's with kind of most likely low budget, kind of lower quality animation, unfortunately. Um, which is just the main issue with the series so far, and I just don't think it's going to get better as it goes on. I think I'm still going to finish it, but I'm just disappointed with the way that this the series has turned out, with Yokohama Animation Lab being the one to handle adapting it. I mean, again, like I mentioned before, I guess I shouldn't be too surprised considering it's a lesser known manga and it wouldn't get like a big animation studio. But I was at least hoping there would be maybe some passionate people behind this project to sort of try to give it something, to actually do it uh, in at least an interesting way. But it doesn't seem like that's really the case. It just seems like they just got whoever they could get to adapt the series, and that's kind of how it turned out. Um, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. So after after the fight ends, the executioner tries to gain sanctuary, with the paladin core, but he gets all four of his limbs just shot out by Guido at such a far off
yeah,
distance. Thanks to Asaf's I guess his aiming ability with using his crows. So after he's been the executioner's totally incapacitated without any of his arms or legs. He gets taken prisoner alongside what was it? Um what was it? What was it? Kugat's former lieutenant, and he asks Helga what he wants to do with them, and she tells him that just make them suffer, um, as long as possible after what they did to her family.
yeah. So I mean, I guess it looks like he's now just maybe has them permanently encased, or like part of their body permanently encased in ice or something like that. Um, so I
Yeah,
guess I would assume maybe they're just in constant pain. Um, so I guess in a way that they are just going to be just suffering for as long as they're alive. Uh,
yeah.
but yeah, I mean, it does. We also do get a brief flashback with Helga first discovering Ashcan and her like taking Ashcan out of where her family was keeping it, and her like I guess arguing with her mother about it.
Yeah, it seems like they're establishing like some kind of love hate relationship between Ashcan and
Yeah,
Helga at times, and if of course, there are times in which Ashcan mentions that he hates Helga at times, but he feels like you know he feels some amount of comfort being around her as well, which is it's a bit weird, but yeah, I mean, I don't know, I don't know how how that kind of relationship, between Helga and Ashcan are established.
hmm
But yeah, it also seems like Helga also cares for the sword as well, despite the fact that he has like this destructive power if he's unsealed.
yeah. Um, I am hoping like I haven't read too much further past this point in the story, but I mean without spoiling too much, at least Helga does seem to join up with them after this arc. So I'm kind of hoping that she does, she becomes maybe like one of the main characters because I actually did like her character. So I am kind of hoping that's the case. Even though it does seem like they kind of like separate after this, I think Helga does actually like rejoin them. So
Mm.
yeah, but I mean
Yeah, didn't Asaf offer her a place to work with them in the
I
order,
think so. Yeah,
in the order medical order? Yeah, I think she also mentioned that she also declines that offer, at least for now, from what I can tell.
yeah. Um, but yeah, it was. I mean, that's pretty much more or less where the episode ends. And I mean, this was the final episode for this particular arc. I would say this, like in the manga, it's definitely the best arc so far. Um, but I do think that after this, we do kind of get into maybe like because so far it's kind of been sort of individual stories that aren't really connected in any way, just with the same characters like Yudo and Ashaf. But after this, it
Mhm.
does seem like they get into more of like an overarching story with what's going on with Yudo. Um, that and this is really all I can say that happens after this. But I mean, this was definitely the best of the shorter story arcs that they've been through. Just because of like it was a lot. There was a lot more action, and I did like the character of Helga and how it was a bit of a twist that she was a witch, but she wasn't necessarily like evil or anything like that, which we hadn't really seen we hadn't really seen that up to this point. Um, but yeah, I mean, complaints about the animation aside, I thought, they at least handled the story and character aspect of it. They were mostly adapted pretty much straight from the manga, so I didn't really have any complaints there. Um, but yeah, I don't really have too much else to say though. I mean, we're almost finished with this, so I'm kind of curious as to where this season is going to end in terms of which story arc it's going to end on. Um, but yeah, I don't really have much else to say about the episode though. I don't know if you have anything else to say about it.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I knew it was gonna end, but it didn't end in the way the way I thought it was gonna
Like it
be.
was kind
Like
of
I said, it
abrupt, I
just
guess.
yeah, it just ended abruptly the way, the fight between Ashkan and Guido ended up. I mean, I didn't expect it to be that, that one-sided. I thought, like I thought like Ashkan would put a little bit more of a it would be a little bit more
Well,
equal footing on
especially considering how much he'd been
against
built up as like a really big threat, and then Gudo just like kind of just is I guess even more powerful than even him.
Yeah, she just takes him down with with a left hook. That's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, I would like to see that's I mean, I would like to see later on there be like a villain that's about as powerful, if not more powerful than Gudo that, can actually, put up a fight or fight back against Gudo. And, I mean, considering how overpowered Gudo supposedly is. Um, so, I mean, I guess that's the other complaint I would have about the series so far is that it doesn't really feel like Ashkin and Gudo, for the most part, at least so far in the story, it's like they haven't really been in any real danger. Like they haven't really fought anybody that's really like been even more powerful than they are, or like been any kind of a real threat.
Yeah. I mean, maybe we might see it in one of the later
Yeah.
episodes, but I mean, like I said, I haven't read the manga. I mean, I'm mostly going into this as an anime original right now. So I mean,
Yeah.
unless if I decide to read the
I
manga
I would
myself, I
still
mean,
suggest if anybody is an anime original and hasn't read the manga, I would at least suggest reading it because I will say in terms of the art and character design, like you're kind of missing out, unfortunately, when it comes to the anime's depiction of it. I mean, it kind of does, have the same kind of art style, but it just, like I said, it just can't hold a candle to it because of course the manga is just significantly more detailed than the anime is. Um, but yeah, I don't really have too much else to say about the episode though. I don't know if you have anything else to say about it.
yeah. I, I mean, I like this the witch and the sword story arc is one of the better
Mm.
ones in this anime so far. But I just didn't like the way that it the final fight ended.
Yeah, yeah. I wish there was a little bit. It was a little bit more tense considering these were supposed to be like two really powerful beings, and it just ended up that Yudo was somehow just even more powerful than Ashken, which is one of the reasons why the executioner wanted to get his hands on Ashken in the first place is just because of how powerful he was. Well, I mean, speaking of which, too, like we get to, I guess, kind of learn a little bit about the executioner's motivations in the at the end of the episode too, and apparently he just wanted to get a hold of Ashkin because like I guess because of just how powerful Ashkin was, and he was just kind of obsessed with it. Uh, I guess in a way too that's another criticism I would have is that the villains so far have been a little bit in terms of at least in terms of their motivations. They have been a little bit like one dimensional. Like there's not really a lot to them, and except that they're just either they're crazy or they're obsessed, and that's really all there is to it, and that's why they're doing what they're doing. Um, so yeah, I mean, hopefully we can get something a little bit more out of some of the villains that show up later on. Um, but yeah, so that all being said, guys, until next time, we will see you all later.